Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Hustings at the Citizen Hub in St Neots. This is a unique opportunity for us to engage with our parliamentary candidates. There is obviously an empty chair. Marianne has unfortunately had to pull out this evening due to being too unwell to attend. It's an opportunity to hear their perspective on issues that matter most to you as a community. I'd like to start by thanking our candidates for being here, their willingness to share their vision for St Neots. We appreciate the time and effort you've put into your campaign and joining us this evening to discuss your ideas and answer our questions. Tonight's Hustings is structured to ensure that we have a focused and respectful discussion. Each candidate will be given the chance to give a 90-second statement at the front end, and then they will be allowed a minute to answer each question that you have.
So in terms of welcoming you to the Hub, so my name is Kate Davis, very honoured to be hosting the round this evening and St Neots Initiative. In terms of fire escape is behind you or in front of you here. There was toilets just through that door there, and then we've got refreshments here. So at any time that you need to have a comfort break, feel free to do so. Thank you so much to the people that submitted questions in advance. We will come to you for your questions. If you can't remember what the question was that you submitted and you want a refresher, let us know. Or if you feel like the mood has changed in the 2 weeks since you submitted your question, feel free to ask a slightly different one. The hope is that we will then give candidates a minute to respond to each of those questions, and hopefully that will give us time at the end for questions from the audience.
Yeah, so we are streaming tonight's event. If you wouldn't like to be recorded, just tell Mark who's in the pod and we'll make sure that you're not. I'd like to remind everyone that this is not a public debate. We won't allow back and forth between the crowd and the candidates, allow the candidates to answer the questions and try to be respectful if we can. Personal attacks will not be tolerated by the panel or by you guys on the panel. And we'll try and keep some decorum this evening, which is unusual for me. This evening is about providing a platform for each of the candidates to present their ideas clearly and for you, the audience, to get a better understanding of their position. We hope this event will be able to inform your decision for the upcoming election. Thank you once again for being here. Let's have a productive and enlightening evening. So we'll start with the first question, which comes from the citizen. Oh yeah. Good start. Just in terms of how this will run, the guys sat in order, so we'll answer 1 to 6, and the next question will be answered 2 back through to 1. So each person will answer more time each round. That's it. So we'll start this end. Go on.
Intro?
Yeah,
Can I stand up so they can see?
Yeah, absolutely.
Evening all, my name's Guy Lachlan. I'm the Reform UK candidate. I live in Caxton, father of 3. In my day job, I'm a small retailer, like I know some of you are. And my small political career, I also currently am president of the British Independent Retailers Association, which exists to promote retail obviously across the country. And also I'm on the board of the Historic and Classic Vehicles Alliance, which is a trade association to represent those of us in the classic car business as well. So that's me. As far as St Neots goes, I still do most of our shopping here. came here since there was Woolworths on. I'm trying to remember when Woolworths went, but that was, I go back that far, I'm that old, unfortunately. And we used to do all our banking here until Lloyds managed to close the branches, so that's my goal with St Neots.
Nancy Brown.
Thank you. Hello, so I'm Anthony Brown. I'm the Conservative Party candidate for St Neots in West Cambridgeshire. I was born and grew up locally. I was born in Cambridge. I went to school locally. I've known St Neots since I was a child. It was a thriving destination place where people indeed went shopping and went for boating activities. I studied mathematics at Cambridge University. Not that's relevant for anything, but I then went into a career as a journalist. I was a journalist for 20 years at the Times, BBC, and Observer. I was in charge of economic development in London. St Neots is a fantastic town. I live here now, I've known it all my life. One of the things I'm really excited about is the opportunities for St Neots. It's clearly had more difficult times recently. The high street has got so many closed shops, and it really needs a powerful champion that can make sure the economy gets going again. I was today just with the Hughes Valley Boat Club down by the river, looking at all the opportunities for that we could do with the boats here and the use of the river. And I've been meeting many community groups here, and I think, including the Citizens Hub, actually, I've been here many times at different events. You've taken your panels down, saying where your funding comes from. But St Neots is a fantastic community because it has got so many different community groups that are really, really thriving, but it really needs somebody that can be a powerful champion for St Neots and make sure that it gets a fair deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. You keep using the Lib Dem fair deal.
No, you don't have a monopoly on it.
Yeah, we're on monopoly. So I'm Ian Solomon, I'm the Lib Dem parliamentary candidate. I live in St Neots with my wife and 12-year-old son, and in terms of why St Neots is special to me, that's really why. Because St Neots is the first place I've been able to buy my own home. I did postgraduate degrees, I didn't enter the workforce until relatively I was quite old, and like a lot of young people, still sort of young, I got stuck paying high rents, really hard to save for deposits, and it's only relatively recently I've been able to buy a home for my family. And actually, I'm really proud of St Neots because St Neots is providing lots of homes for lots of families, and it always has been. If you look back in history to 60s and 70s, and Neots loves farm and wintering, and I think it's a fantastic thing about this town. It's so welcoming. The other thing about this town that I find really special is the sense of creativity and entrepreneurship, and how welcoming that is. You know, embodied actually by this Citizens Hub and what that represents in the community. But there's so many other community groups all pulling, because there's, I would suggest, maybe a liberal spirit of get on and do it yourself in St Neots. And I'm really keen to be that national champion that we're all going to talk about, I think, at parliamentary level. So, thanks very much.
Catherine Fisher.
Hello everybody, and first of all, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Catherine Fisher, and I'm the Green Party candidate for St Neots in Cambridgeshire. So I actually grew up on the very east side of the constituency. I grew up in Histon, and I studied locally there in the state school, Hills Road, and then I went to Cambridge University where I studied architecture, and now I'm a landscape designer. I work in the city doing that. So I can't lie to you, I don't have a deep personal connection to St Neots, but what I have found since starting this campaign is talking to people from St Neots at the last hustings that we had, and just generally walking around town and talking to people, is that they're really relieved that there is a Green Party candidate standing, because we are really standing for something different. So the Green Party has an ambitious vision for the country that focuses on making everybody's lives better, and we are going to put the planet at the heart of everything we do. Our fully costed manifesto came out last week, and in it explains how we're going to fight inequality and avert climate collapse. We'll do this by creating a healthier society, by investing in our NHS and making sure that everyone has a warm, comfortable and sustainable home to live in. We will tackle the cost of living by increasing the minimum wage and bringing down bills by bringing public services back into public hands. We will rewild our land to increase habitats for our wildlife and invest in renewable energy to generate jobs and energy security. The Green Party is the only party to offer real hope and real change. The Tories are toast, so if you cannot vote with your heart, they are toast, in this general election, then when can you vote Green for real hope and real change? Thank you.
Stephen?
Thank you. So about voting with your heart. My name's Stephen and I'm an independent. I've lived in St Neots for 10 years on Lost Farm, and I've been a councillor for 6 of those years, and that's 2,238 days. And I can honestly say that I've tried to serve you on every single one of those days. I've been elected as your mayor twice. I've been elected as chair of county council twice. I currently serve on the cabinet at HDC, where I'm responsible for many things, including homelessness, housing, and benefits. In those roles, I represented 40% of the new constituency, and other than Anthony, perhaps, I think I'm the most experienced candidate here. In my day job, I'm an engineer. I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. I went to Imperial. But the question you're probably asking yourself is why elect an independent? So like many of you, I'm disillusioned by the blame-shifting culture that's always happened in party politics, and we'll probably hear some of that tonight. If you elect me, I'll always put your interests first, and not those of the political party. I believe in collaboration over conflict, and I won't engage in tribalistic party political bickering. I'll always vote with my conscience, support the government when they get it right, and being a thorn in their side when they don't. And I'll invite scrutiny and embrace challenge. I'm happy to justify my vote, any vote that I take in your behalf, and that's something that I've always done. So the perception around St Neots is that Neots has always been Northampton and played second fiddle to it. So this is your chance to change that, to elect someone that has served you, who knows you, who's always put your interests first. So Anthony and Ian both said that St Neots needs a champion. St Neots already has a champion, and on July the 5th, I'll be the champion of Midlands too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bev. I'm from the Party of Women. Thank you for coming. So I'm going to change it a little bit. So I'm told the audience today is mainly people involved in business, so I thought I'd do some kind of staff protection. The Equality Act 2010 was implemented under the Human Rights Law to offer protection to all members of society. The Act outlines 9 protected characteristics, which can be constant, temporary, or a mix. The idea is nobody should be excluded, and if conflict arises, a solution or compromise should be found. Unfortunately, things haven't been that simple. In 2018, Anne Sinnott raised the alarm that Cambridge City Council's equality policy was inaccurate. In 2021, using the Equality Act, Maya Forstater challenged her employer and won in relation to freedom of belief and freedom of speech, free speech. And it was considered a landmark case, although I doubt many of you in HR here that you would have heard of it. After it was found government departments had been misstating the Act's official guidance for 10 years to the detriment of women, it was finally clarified in 2022. But misrepresentation of the Act is still visible across many sectors. As school policies affect staff and children, I began looking at the equality policies in Cambridgeshire schools. The policies show confusion and a lack of clarity. And if this leads to discriminatory practice against women and girls, we could see more legal challenges. If a state-funded institution gets taken to court for a breach of the Equality Act, the taxpayer foots the bill. And who will be held accountable if, despite warnings, poor quality implementation leads to discrimination, bullying, or sexual assault? If a business representative, or as communities, do you think that escaping accountability is a loophole that needs closing, or should it remain open to give our leaders a opt-out? Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to our first question, which comes from St Neots Initiative. With St Neots Initiative's unique insights, we see a huge gap for further education infrastructure that is co-designed with our business community. We recently had to rescue local government to give St Neots a chance of directing some combined authority funding towards this. It was very last minute, and the experience left many of our local leaders disillusioned by the representation we have in our local economic growth. What will you do to support the area, develop a social and economic growth strategy that includes all sectors of the constituency, in both the development of this strategy as well as the delivery of its outcomes? Start
with these, I'm away. Oh, a minute, okay. All right. Well, that's a massive question. So it's obviously important to get the breadth of the economy working properly and firing on all cylinders. And it's particularly with a retail hat on, retail and the service industry particularly suffered very badly with a lack of available skills and people, and just the sheer economic impossibilities of operating in today's climate. So it's obviously really important to get everybody involved in the economy. We have 5 million people who are economically inactive in this country today, and that's not good. It's not sensible, it's not good. We need to get these people re-engaged. We need to reduce the focus we have on degrees, like everyone else has in the and start to train people and bring them forward in proper skilled and enable them to fulfill a role in the economy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anthony Brown.
Thank you. So this is actually something I've discussed quite a bit with various people in St Neots, including Alex Hughes, who's one of the co-founders of the St Neots initiative. One of the things that struck me at St Neots is, clearly there are economic challenges here. You see it along the high street. But it's how weak the business voice is in policy making around St Neots. And one of the things I have suggested is actually we need an economic growth task force for St Neots, get the voice of business in, of other third sector groups like the St Neots initiative, and come up with a whole series of proposals of how we get St Neots on front foot economically again, and then work to implement those proposals. So some of the things that I have suggesting is, for example, looking at properly setting up a business improvement district. This is if it has the support of businesses. Huntington has one. I used to be responsible for them in London, where there are 23 of them. This is where they provide a lot of support for improvements in a local area, improving pride in an area, looking at free parking on market days, looking at changing the hours of the market, which at the moment is too early for most people, and looking at using high street rental auctions, which make the district council the powers they have to force landlords to rent out empty shops. I think on the higher education, the further education side, I used to be responsible for further education in London. I think that's a huge case for further education or schools.
So I'll pick up where Anthony left off actually and start with the further education, because it's actually referred to as a desert in some things, the post-16 provision. And actually a big concern is that we may, with the struggles of the Australia and Long Sands, and not many pupils seem to be enjoying going there and carrying on in sixth form, we may even lose what little we have. So that is something that is an urgent priority to change, and it's disappointing to hear that the initiative had to step in at the last minute to try and work with local leaders. It's not good enough. We need to get that engagement more up front. More broadly, I think it comes from, there's a national level of as a country we need an industrial strategy, but at a local level we need an economic strategy as well, and involving the different groups in that in a consistent way. It's been very piecemeal for a very long time. It needs more direction from the top.
Catherine? So the question of how to boost local business and create thriving St Neots, I believe will always come back to making sure that first of all people can live comfortably. So almost half of St Neots is deprived in one dimension, so that's education, employment, health, or housing. So first of all, we have to sort that out, because if people aren't thriving in their own homes, then how are we going to expect them to earn loads of money and be really productive at work? It's not going to happen. So we're going to invest heavily in our public services and in housing to do that. We will also be giving local authorities, if we get into power, £2 billion a year to provide grants to help businesses decarbonise, so that the route towards fighting climate collapse brings businesses on board as well. And we would reduce VAT on hard-pressed industries like hospitality and the arts, and increase them on private schools in order to raise new funds.
Education is one of the biggest things affecting this town. Young people are our future. We want to thrive economically in kind of the Cambridge bubble. Yeah, we need to educate our young people. We have a tiny sixth form college for 37,500 people, which has a limited set of academic courses. So my son was one of those people, got to the end of Longstands, ended up having to get the bus every day to CRC, where he thrived afterwards. And the combined authority has allocated some funding. They've realised that St Neots is a further education cold spot, and I agree with Guy, it's not all about universities and degrees, it's about apprenticeships and practical trades, and so establishing that here I think is a key part of our future, and if we're going to thrive we need to sort out further education problems, so I'm all in favour of that.
Well, I'm one of you, I'm employed, so I'm from that sort of a little bit about that perspective. I've also got some with learning needs, and so he was in school when the push for university education came in, but he was never going to achieve university. I also used to work in education, and then I used to see the kids coming in who felt they were failures because they hadn't got through the GCSE system. You having to push them through college. There's issues with apprenticeships, and I think I was reading last week that Timson's, who have been running a really successful apprenticeship scheme for ex-prisoners, which is a really useful, it was a really useful scheme that they've been running for 20 years. They just had to cancel that because it didn't fit in with the criteria required for apprenticeships. I do think, if you can put kids to university, then you need to have the jobs for them afterwards. I also think it's a problem locally, because I know there's a number of companies who are employing like manual skilled workers that are moving out to Northampton, which means unless you can't drive, you can go there, which on low income is not working. It's a problem.
Okay. So the next question comes with the future group within St Neots Initiative. So their question is, what do you think young people need most in the town? So if we move down to start by listening.
I think the most important thing that young people should have in the town is a good education. And we all know, Stephen mentioned the troubles there are in Ernhoff and Longstand schools. I've spoken to a lot of parents about it, I've spoken to teachers about it, former teachers, senior managers, the head teachers of the schools, the chief executive of Australia Trust. I did a survey about amongst parents, extraordinary level of concern. In my current constituency, I have many schools like Campbell Village College, very few complaints, and I took all the problems with the Ernhoff and Longstand to the schools minister. I think the only solution is to bring them onto new management. That will be transformational. I've written a letter for that, and in fact, I'm hosting a meeting for parents of the school here. That really needs to be sorted out. But you also need just a lot more activities for young people. There are a lot of young people here. There isn't a lot for them to do. And we should absolutely support lots of activities for different clubs and stuff.
So I would say on this, it doesn't matter so much what I think as to what they think. And we are for engaging with young people generally and it's actually really fantastic. I know Dan, you chaired the Future Group previously. It's a great forum in St Neots, and there's also the Youth Council now, Town Council. There are places emerging where people can be heard, but a subset of people, young people, and we need to actually get out and find avenues and talk to those young people that are involved. How do we talk to other young people and find out what they need? I agree on education, absolutely. I suspect we're all very much on the same page in terms of Australia and removing them long term. But in terms of what young people want, I want to hear what they want.
Yeah, I would agree that education is a fundamental building block for children in order to then prosper later on in life. Since the Tories have come in, they have slashed funding to teachers. If there are any teachers in the room, you'll know this. We currently have over 1 million students in the UK in classes over 30. The Green Party would aim to get that down to 20 students in each class, and we would do that by investing £8 billion into education. We would also bring academies back into local authority hands, as they clearly failed here. But importantly, I think young people really need hope. They really need to believe that people in power doing something about the climate crisis, because so many young people are struggling with climate anxiety, myself included, and that goes alongside the fact that the Green Party would invest heavily in mental health services so that we can tackle the mental health crisis that is also happening in this country. Thank you.
So what we need to do is listen to them, right? Listen to their voices and not listen to kind of, well, Catherine's quite young, but the rest of us are going a bit grey. So, yeah. So I think what we need to do, so when I was mayor of St Neots, I reformed the youth council. When I was mayor of St Neots, I reformed the youth council and we listened to their voices. One of the things they said, there's not enough things to do around here. They talked about the skate park which is falling around. So, when I was mayor, I raised £3,500, which is their first funding. Finally completed their funding today, we're going to get a new skate park revamped. They also say lack of opportunity to move around and see their friends. So lots of them have friends in Camborne or in the villages, they can't get to the villages because there's no bus services. So making sure young people can travel around the constituency without having to drive, because they're too young to drive, they can't afford a car, is a really key thing. So to public transportation for me is a real way of letting people enjoy themselves.
In some ways, I mean, kids' mental health is tanking at the moment. And I sometimes think, I look at the freedom that I had as a child to do something without being observed. And you can like fight us up in a tree, or you're going to nick a car or something. Obviously, you don't want to do that anymore. But I just think we had so much freedom to do stuff and find ourselves and fall over and break your leg. And I sometimes think now we're so invested on putting stuff on for children that costs money, that has adult supervision. And I think sometimes they don't want that. I know my kids, they were quite happy. One of their friends used to have a sound system. They used to sit down in the park, and they just sit down there on Saturday night, and then they'd pick all the rubbish up, chuck it by the bins, and then go back home. And that was what they wanted. And I think sometimes now you're so busy trying to throw things at them to keep them engaged. And I think it's good to get off their gadgets and what have you, but I think sometimes they just need to be left alone and ask them what they want to do. Thank you.
And Hospital Police.
I actually agree with Catherine that young people need hope. And you can't really blame them because they look forward to a world where we effectively mortgage their future. All three major parties talk about a situation of sort of managed decline. They don't have any ambition or aspiration for the country. It's as if they're managing us into just down into a sort of second-class nation. And they need to have some idea of hope. You can't really blame them because they're looking forward to a world of energy insecurity caused by ridiculous net zero policies that we don't need and are unworkable, food insecurity, insecurity in the country because we don't have any armed forces anymore. So we need to give them that idea of hope. And we do that by re-energizing the political system and stop this sort of no net gain system that we currently operate under, where there's just no vision for the future.
The next question comes from our manufacturing club in the town. So the country has been without an industrial strategy for several years now, with previous governments not wanting to associate itself with manufacturing. However, manufacturing represents a key sector for this constituency's economy, or nationally contributing to £124 billion of GVA, 2.6 million jobs, 49% of exports, 41% of research and development, 8 globally by output. Do you think we should have a dedicated minister for manufacturing? How will you support the lifeblood of our economy? Ian.
Okay. So in terms of the industrial strategy, that is absolutely a priority, and it's actually in a business section of this, the manifesto. It's the first thing that's in there. We have been without an industrial strategy for far too long. We need to give the country some direction and business some support that way. Manufacturing is absolutely a key part of that. I think it does need, generally in politics, we need better accountability of politicians, and that does start at the ministerial level, whether it falls under as minister solely for manufacturing or under a ministerial brief. The line of accountability to deliver that industrial strategy, that manufacturing element of industrial strategy needs to be there. Someone needs to be held accountable in Parliament and be taking questions on that.
So you touched on this earlier about bringing people along with the transition into a greener future, but I want to reiterate that the Green Party really understands that we have to invest in our industry and encourage them to decarbonise and develop their industries in the direction that's most beneficial for the planet. I guess my question is, what do we want to be the leader of manufacturing in? Could we funnel our energy and resources into being the leading manufacturer of wind turbines, of solar panels, of tidal power, etc. We could become, we're an island, so tidal power is right on our doorstep. Why are we not the leading country in tidal power? And maybe Cambridgeshire is the place to do that.
Stephen?
So to answer the question, absolutely yes, I'm an engineer. I worked for Siemens for 30 years. A couple of weeks ago I was at a huge engineering conference where I interviewed lots of engineers and about massive manufacturing projects being placed all around Europe, these massive gigafactories building batteries and robots and cars, all sorts of things. None of them were here yet because the government doesn't respect manufacturing, doesn't respect engineers and engineering. I've been to St Neots Manufacturing Club. The other big issue is that manufacturing is not just about machines, it's about people. And every single one of those companies is struggling to recruit and retrain engineers, partly because of the Brexit debacle. Nobody wants to come here anymore. So we can't. To survive in a global economy or to compete in a global economy, you have to get the best people from around the world. At the moment, we can't do that. And every single one of those manufacturing companies is struggling, and we need to do better. So having a minister for manufacturing would be a huge improvement, I think. Somebody to talk up for industry.
I don't really know enough about the subject. I mean, it sounds like it would be useful, but I think it would also have to be linked to education. Because unless it's linked to education, then, who are you going to pitch your manufacturing at? Are you going to pitch up here so you've got your graduates, or are you going to pitch it down here so your working class men can be occupied as well? Because I think one of the issues at the moment is, I was talking to an engineer the other week, and it's getting really hard now to do your car repairs because they're my age, then they grew up with an engine that you could just manually do, whereas now it's all electronic, it's got to be put up to a machine, and then that's got to be tested, and then you've got to go back and then test it again. And they're not qualified for it, some of them. They can get their hands dirty and know what they're doing. So I think, if you're going to look at manufacturing base, it has to be joined up thinking, I think some companies don't have this.
Guy?
The most terrifying words in the English language, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. I think the last thing we need is a manufacturing minister. What's killing manufacturing in this country is our energy policy. We're taxing the jeepers out of everything to do with energy. The North Sea is being taxed out of existence under the Conservatives, and will be even worse in the next administration, whoever's running it. Our electricity carries enormous premiums to pay for the net zero policies, and as a consequence, we're exporting our manufacturing to save our carbon footprint and then importing the finished goods, pretending that we're saving the planet. It's complete garbage. The government needs to get out of the way and stop holding back manufacturing. It will happen if we stop stopping it.
I'm from the government, so I'm here to help. I say that's like tongue cheek. So I'm Transport Minister. I'm Minister for Aviation. I'm responsible for decarbonisation of transport, electric vehicles. I spend a lot of my time visiting factories. I love factories. A lot of car factories with Ford or Jaguar Land Rover making new electric vehicles. On the aviation side, I'm responsible for sustainable aviation. We've got a whole industry that's thriving and growing, developing new low-carbon technologies for aviation. I've invested within my portfolio £180 million on low-carbon aviation. So the government is supporting it an awful lot. And in fact, manufacturing in the UK, we've now overtaken France as a manufacturer in terms of manufacturing output. We've gone from being 7th biggest exporter in the world to 4th biggest exporter in the world. That's not just manufacturing, it's also services. But we do have a good record. But we do need an overall strategy for industry. We have had one. Sometimes it's called an industrial strategy. Sometimes it doesn't have that name, but it is cross-cutting. It isn't choosing winners and picking winners and saying, all right, we want to do this. It is about providing the skills, providing an export regime that supports industry, and providing just an overall confidence that manufacturers need that they know that the government is behind them if they have any problems. It's also about providing the infrastructure. I was honoured to open the A428 dueling year. I did the first work there, and that will really help manufacturing St Neots in terms of being able to export their goods around the country.
Okay, so question from Chapman, shall I ask question in this section? Okay. So we've got Ray Potter. Hello, Ray. Can you remember your question? Or would you like me to ask your question for you?
Yes, we've heard now that Sunak bases his life on his Hinduism. Could the candidates tell us what religious or philosophical basis they have for their life?
What a lovely question. So I don't personally practice a religion, but I do have very strong sense of justice and a real sense of always trying to better myself, but also doing good in the world. I guess, where do I go from here? I think that there's a real need to spread love and joy, especially in this world that is so divided, and in this country that has been so divided by various elections, etc. So I suppose as a Green Party candidate and as a representative of the Green Party, we are here to spread hope and to be the party of like goodwill and joy and love. So there we go.
Perfect. Stephen.
So, I went to a Catholic school, grew up in a Catholic family, went to Mass until my early 20s, and so that's a big part of my identity, is being Catholic. I still love listening to songs of praise and singing along rather badly. But these days, I am an atheist. I no longer believe in any religion. I used to be a bit of an evangelical atheist, but I think my position on that has calmed a lot, because I see lots of the great work that religious communities are doing, especially in St Neots with Father Paul. So yeah, I respect religions, I understand it, I've read the Bible, yeah, I get it all, and I think it has dictated my moral compass, but I'm not religious anymore, and I wouldn't try to claim I am.
I've never had any religious faith. I've read children's Bible. I do have quite a strong moral stance, which probably comes from Christianity. I understand that a lot of people get a lot from their religious faith, and actually I've got friends who are quite religious, and I do envy them sometimes, but I think it gives them a degree of strength and certainty that maybe I don't feel. And I do sometimes wonder what. I respect everybody's right to have a faith or not have a faith, but I do sometimes wonder what is the impact of not having a faith on society generally. I wonder if if we start losing our morals. I don't know. I know there's big debates going on about it at the moment. What do you think? Are we losing it, or the moral value, or are we?
We'll all collectively hold that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Church of England. I would consider myself to be a Christian. I visit our church for services not every week, but multiple times a year. I try to live my life to Christian values, which are, I think, humane ways of doing unto others as you'd like to be done to yourself. I do think that with the lack of having any spiritual basis, I think something else fills that hole. I think what we're seeing at the moment is, as people move away from established religions, other things are taking their place, and many small p political views are currently treated as if they're religious views, which is quite an interesting change in our society. But for myself, if I have to fill in for myself Christian, but I'm not a particular fan of the current leadership of the Church of England, but that's what I would consider myself.
Like Catherine, I don't practice religion myself, but I am definitely a product of Christianity in terms of my world outlook. My wife says I'm the most pro-religious person, for somebody who's not actually religious. I love visiting churches and temples, for example. I've visited most of the churches in St Neots. I think they are a fantastic part of our history and tell a lot about the society we've had. And St Neots is fantastic, having so many really ancient churches. In terms of my world outlook, I tend to classify myself as a classical liberal. I believe in individual freedom, that people should be allowed to do what they want as long as they don't harm other people, and absolutely support the right of others to practice their own religious beliefs. I believe very strongly in fairness. I think that's a founding conservative principle, yeah, that's it. I'm quite more about different things in terms of like actually making sure we do the right thing and live our lives for the right values.
Thank you.
So I too do not have a religion. I consider myself an atheist, and actually I was talked into being a member of Humanists UK by a friend, so I think I'm still a member of Humanists UK. But my hinterland actually is very much in Methodism. My grandfather was a lay Methodist minister, and very much more of the primitive Methodism than the Wesleyan Methodism, if you're all interested in the niches of these things. And those values that still come through my family to me, I think, even though I don't believe in God, and that's why I'm no religion anymore. I think that there's so much value to be had out of it if you look at the lessons that those stories are trying to teach.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Richard Jones. Do you remember your question?
I'll give it a go, I'll have a ramble. Hi everybody. So in the town, sports provision, we mentioned all about sort of youth services and actually providing in provision for youth activities. Over the last 40 years, there's been very little in terms of improving sports facilities, in particular for girls. So the success of the Lionesses, we've seen a boom of activity in terms of girls wanting to play, and we're not seeing the facilities keep up with it. So for example, St Neots youth, we use the common and other areas, no toilet facilities, no changing facilities, no running water, and girls have to go home to go to the toilet during a game, which is so backward and unacceptable. So we've been trying for 15 years to try and get better facilities in and around the town to support girls football and into ladies football, because the demand is there, and there'll be more coming because it's growing day by day, and if we can do over the next sort of season, we'll see them more. So what we do to support not only youth sport and youth activity, but in particular girls sport and activity.
Can I just say thank you for doing that? Sorry, because I didn't realise until a couple of years ago, girls' football used to be really popular in the early 1920s, and then it binned off. They weren't allowed to play it because the men came back from war, and it was really popular, so they stopped it so that men could come back, and then all the money then in the 60s and whatever started going to men's football, and eventually it wasn't in the 80s that women's football then started taking on prominence again. And like I said, it is really popular, and I think there's a problem with girls. We hit puberty, and we realise that boys have that massive spurt testosterone, and we realise that they're a lot faster than we are, and a lot of girls lose interest. So can we say well done for having the club, and keeping on with it, and keeping the girls motivated to attend? And yeah, I'd be disappointed getting new facilities. I think well done, thank you.
So yeah, what have I done to improve sport? Now I started, my interest in politics was starting Pocket Park Run in 2018, which I think over 40,000 different people have run 5k or walked 5k around Pocket Park Run. Also spun off a junior event at Riverside Park. I'm a huge supporter of football in the town. I support St Neots FC, which is where Cambridge United ladies play, which is great if you go and see them. Dan managed Eastern Open FC to their first cup final, which is a fantastic example now. It seemed like the whole town was there, and the quality of football was brilliant. We do need to invest more in sports facilities. Eastern Open Cricket Club has got some investment to improve their female changing facilities as well, which is really good. But it's something we need to talk about across the whole of sport, because we don't have fantastic facilities, and sport is such an important part of the community. I think that sport needs to come together, and tell elected representatives what you need from us. So I think that I'm willing to listen to you when you elect me. Thank you.
I'm a great believer. I'm a father of a female athlete, and so I've spent my time, like you say, carting off to laboratories that are miles away from where sporting facilities are. It's not good enough. I would say, and I'm sure you've done this already, but it's not just a political fix. There's plenty of private money around here. There's plenty of budgets for from companies local to here who'll be glad to help, I'm sure. You've probably tried all this already, but there are pockets of money around that can help establish facilities like this. Certainly at Milton Keynes BMX Club, where my kids were members, they managed to get some really quite decent local funding out of private sources. But I think it's going to be some kind of question of private-public funding that you need to bring together to manage this. But I appreciate it's not easy. The role of the national representative really is just to cheerlead and bang heads together and make sure people are talking to each other and you've got access to the pots of money that you need. But I support you every step of the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to absolutely echo what people said about the importance of sports in general, and I've seen all the different clubs there are in St Neots, and in particular women's sports. I'm the father of a daughter. The women's football is. I really rejoiced when it came to national spotlight when the Lionesses did so well. And it's one of the ways I act as an MP, or have acted as an MP, is. As Guy said, you don't have any local formal powers and budgets to spend. What you can do is be a good cheerleader and make things happen. And one thing as an MP is when you write letters to people or ask to see people or try and get things to happen, you have an awful lot of influence in that. So things like this, the most important thing in public life is actually to know what you want to do, like these improved facilities, and then work out where to get the money. It's good money, because there are lots of money, as Guy said. There's often lots of national pots of money, there are local pots of money, there's I'm sure you tried the community fund, you were nodding at that. But knowing what you want and then keep driving it, and as an MP, I would very happy to do everything I can to help you get those facilities.
So I think there's a theme emerging that MP can be a champion for those facilities. But one thing that's not been mentioned is that there's been a lot of building in the town, and that brought some new facilities, but it will bring more. And we need to actually tap into that. The developer contributions, and there has actually been unspent developer contributions, not associated with sport or enforcement, but we need to make sure that those developers are building what the community wants rather than what some planner in HDC wants, frankly. And there needs to be much more community involvement on what's needed and what should be delivered by that.
Catherine?
So when I was 13, I actually joined Histon Hornets for all of 1 year. So that's the little club. And then it folded because we couldn't get enough players to have a full team. So I really appreciate how important it is to not only have the facilities to play, but also have the inspiring people to encourage girls to get into sport. It goes without saying that sport is so good for our mental health and also our physical health. It will keep people out of having to see the doctor. Can keep people from having to go to the NHS, which is already been watched around. I think it's really important also that you mentioned about public toilets, because public toilet provision is so vital for women and also for disabled people. That's 15% of St Neots identify as being disabled, and it really limits your freedom. So just the example of women is that you might be menstruating, you might be breastfeeding. There's so many reasons why women will need to use a bathroom more frequently than men. And we're just speaking as a woman here, my own personal experience. I kind of plan my day based on where I can get to a toilet, and I don't know if anyone else in the audience relates to this, but I think that's a really good point that you made. And as a Green Party candidate, we would invest in these public utilities and also in sports.
Thank you.
Okay, next question we've got is from Gordon Round. We've got Gordon in the room. Can you remember your question?
I remember the gist of it, yes, thank you very much. We've seen over recent decades huge housing development in St Neots, and that is continuing, obviously reaching on Lost Farm Phase 2. But not so much commercial development, and many people commute out of the town. What could the candidates do if they're elected to influence their governments to provide more opportunities for businesses to locate here, so people don't have to commute, don't have to travel out of the town, with all that, the environmental impact that they have of commuting? Yeah, so I'm a product of one of those new bits of the town. I'm from Loves Farm, yeah, and it doesn't have much industry, but Wintering is being built alongside it. It does have provision for industry. If you look at what's happened at Alton we Weald, which is kind of the enterprise hotspot. There's some really big businesses moving there, including parts of Marshall Aerospace are moving there now. So there's definitely the opportunity. But part of the problem is that development is all about house building. That's what everybody's talking about, building 150,000 houses in Cambridge. Yeah, not so much about building. We don't want to be a commuter job, yeah. Commuter town. We want to be a town with jobs that allow people to thrive. So there's huge opportunities. EWR is probably coming here, yeah. There's supposed to be another 50,000 people living in Templeton and Little Bath. It won't be good enough if we don't have jobs for them too. So all about that, all about, I'm an engineer, all about getting involved in working with the councils to tell the councils what we need to establish for proper high-tech, high-quality and high-value engineering jobs. So that's would be one of my ambitions, yes.
I must admit, this isn't an area I have much experience on, but yeah, I mean, it sounds good, but I also think it's picking in jobs for men and women. So it's a variety. It's not just the big manufacturing jobs. It's also the little jobs that go around it. It's obviously you have your big infrastructure, but then it's the smaller jobs, your office jobs, your shops, and things like that also need to come alongside it. Like, maybe the two go together, and along with your housing as well. But it's not really. So I've got experience on.
Thank you. Guy.
Yeah, it's
What do you do to...
commercial building. Yeah, it's not really surprising that so much of the focus is on housing. If you think last year we had a net growth of the population by the equivalent of the population of Sheffield in the UK. So obviously all of the focus from everywhere goes on trying to house our massively growing population, which is entirely as a result of unconstrained immigration. So we have to get the focus away from just racing to keep standing still with our massively growing population, so that we can catch up with the industrial infrastructure that we need to be part of the new developments, to provide jobs and employment for our existing population.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just come back to one of my earlier answers. We absolutely need an economic development strategy for St Neots and get everyone, every key stakeholder around the table and see, what are the things that we need to be done to make sure that businesses can thrive in St Neots and that it's attractive to businesses coming here. One of the key things is infrastructure, clearly transport. Stephen mentioned EWR. There's the A-Falls rate that I mentioned, which I think will be transformative. One of the things I've been doing as an MP is really championing a lot of the science parks and business parks. So there aren't around St Neots, but there are in other places like Grantham, the Naval Research Institute, the science parks that are close to Cambridge. It's always struck me that there's huge opportunities to have science parks here. I've been working with them closely, with the government, to expand them and to get more laboratories set up. But actually, it's not that far away from Cambridge. It's a real hotspot in Cambridge. I mean, it's overheated in Cambridge. That's part of the problem. And actually, there's huge opportunities to get some of that growth in Cambridge, get it to St Neots.
Yeah, so the connectivity is one of the amazing things about St Neots. Yes, the A42 coming, East West Rail's coming, but we also already have the A1 and the main line, the East Coast main line. So it's a fantastic spot and a fantastic opportunity for more commercial development. And I think to a great extent we will see that with those greater links to Cambridge, and let's not forget to the west as well, and potentially connect. We talked about manufacturing before. East West Rail actually has the potential to connect across as well and be able to get up into the West Midlands manufacturing base and provide those connections between companies as well. So it will become a really attractive place, and we do need that economic strategy, industrial strategy to help facilitate that.
So part of the problem around creating new businesses is not having the investment from the banking sector. So we would encourage all banks to make sure that they are investing in things that can avert a climate crisis. We would require them to present an investment strategy, so they would have to divest from fossil fuels and into more positive business ventures. Another policy of the Green Party is a universal basic income, so that's when everyone gets a flat rate of income paid to the government. And that means that everybody will be much more stable and secure so that they could then start their own business. Because I don't know if any of you here started your own business from scratch, but most people who have to do that have to work really hard, save loads of money, so they have a big pot in the bank to be secure in that before they can start their business. So UBI, universal basic income, would allow that to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question comes from Ari.
Yes, I'd like to tweak my question slightly because one of the candidates mentioned the phrase invest heavy, and I think UBI also came up. And so I'd like to ask each of the candidates, please, to clear something up as regards taxes. Could you please state definitively if you are elected as the MP for this constituency, then would you or your party, if you have one, vote in favour of A, higher taxes, B, lower taxes, or C, haven't made up your mind yet?
We have to engender growth. So the thrust of the reform policies is about lower taxes to encourage economic activity. So for example, the personal allowance under our policies would go up from 12,500 to 20,000 minimum for everybody paying basic rate income tax. High street business rates would go down to zero to encourage retail businesses like we have had here. Stamp duty will go to zero for properties under £2 million. So it's all about trying to engender the right kind of economic activity that I think everybody accepts the country needs. There's a very good article in today's Telegraph about the sort of spirit of the lack of adventurism that successive governments have forced onto the population, but there's no vision, there's no optimism for the future of the country. And we've kind of all got used to it, we've kind of all accepted. When you talk to civil servants about reducing business rates, they say, well, where can we make up the money? Somewhere else. They never say, well, actually, maybe this government should be slightly smaller and less expensive. So we need to get the right balance again between private sector industrial activity and a much smaller state, so that we're spending less and earning more.
Thank you. Nancy Brown.
I absolutely want to have lower taxes rather than high taxes. We obviously, in the pandemic, we spent £400 billion, we spent another £100 billion on the cost of living crisis. That was £500 billion support for families, and unfortunately we had to raise taxes to pay for that. But absolutely long term, want to cut it. I have published many papers, written many articles calling for tax cuts. Some examples: I chair something called the Backbench Treasury Committee, who come up with tax proposals. One was to cut full expensing, allowing companies to deduct investment in plant and machinery against their profits for a year. I met Jeremy Hunt's Chancellor, Rishi, when he was Chancellor. They both said no. Eventually they said yes, it's been introduced. I've called for the full abolition of the stamp duty, actually, which I sit on the board of the Institute for Fiscal Studies. The one tax that is most economically destructive is stamp duty, and it's the one tax they keep calling to be abolished. So clear intention of tax.
So taxes are at their highest level since the Second World War, I think, and a lot of that is reflective of the fact that we've got stuck with our growth, and the problems are mounting up, and we don't have any of the source of money to pay for it. Let's go to people. And what we mustn't do in the face of the cost of living crisis is put more of that burden on ordinary people. So I think it's more about fairer taxes and taxes that encourage growth, and looking for those investment opportunities, as investments in national infrastructure that only the government can make. And by infrastructure, I mean services, health service, the physical transport infrastructure, all those things that help productivity, help growth, that will really actually get us out of this bind that we're in of just ever increasing tax.
Thank you, Catherine.
the wealthiest 50 families in the UK have the same amount of wealth as over 30 million people in the UK. That's half of our population. So the Green Party believes that those with the broadest shoulders should carry their fair share, which is why we'd be focusing our tax increases on assets. So we would tax assets over 10 million at 1% and assets over 1 billion at 2%. We would also make the people earning in the highest tax bracket also pay slightly more tax. This would raise a total of £170 billion a year to invest in our public services, which I should state will always bring money back, because you make a healthier and more thriving society, they can work harder and put more money into the economy. So a good stat that I have for this is every pound that you put into bus services will give you back £4.50 in return.
Thank you. Stephen?
So I think I'm always going to be honest about what I do. Yeah, so all of the party political manifestos say they're going to have low taxes, but if you look behind numbers, they're all putting taxes up by not doing things like changing the tax thresholds. I think the problem is not that we pay too much taxes, but the wrong people pay too much taxes. So people who are on very small incomes, on universal credit, pensioners having to pay taxes, where multi-millionaires with tax lawyers and accountants can dodge taxes, not taxing their wealth. That's fundamentally wrong in our society, and I agree with Catherine, that's something we absolutely need to address. We need to look at the whole of the tax system, because if you ever try to fill in your tax return at the end of the year, there's like blips where you end up paying more if you haven't got child benefit, more if you hit certain thresholds. We need to have a fair tax system where the people who have the most are taxed the most. I think that's normal, but we need to be honest about how we're doing that, and everybody needs to know what they're getting for their taxes, rather than just pretending we're going to make taxes low when we don't do it. So I'll be honest about that.
Well, I'm the party of women, so we only have 16 candidates and we're unlikely to get voted in. I don't think any of us will get to be an MP, but we've only got a 4-line manifesto as well, which starts "No woman has a penis." So obviously we would have to do some considerable thinking in order to consider taxes. So that's fine.
Okay, so next question. Sam, Nancy.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I work locally for a dental price agency, and I work in food banks as well as part of a big project. So my question is about poverty, which is real and on the increase. In the year to the end of March 2024, the Trussell Trust UK-wide network alone distributed 3.1 million food parcels. 1.1 million of those were for children. This is a real worrying trend, that this is becoming the new norm, and we can't allow this to happen. So I want to know what you propose, or your party are proposing to do, to make effective change and lift those that are facing the most dire hardship out of this poverty trap.
Thank you. So we'll start with Anthony.
Well, obviously, we should aspire to live in a society where food banks aren't necessary. And I've visited many food banks, and I certainly appreciate the work they do. And actually, they do a lot more than just provide food as well. So they've put some content for people, they give advice, and actually, there's a whole ecosystem there of support, which is very valuable. And it's not just about food, but absolutely we should aim for a society without food banks. We have, in terms of the benefit system, we provide about £250 billion a year in benefits in the UK. That's the budget for the Department for Work and Pensions. It's really important that it tackles those, it targets those who can't help themselves, those who genuinely need support, those who, particularly with children, where obviously there's lots of costs associated with that. I think that the best route out of poverty, though, is through work. Ultimately, work gives self-worth, and it also provides money to people, and that should be a main focus going.
Thank you.
So it is those are shocking stats. There's no getting away from, and some of that has been self-inflicted in terms of. If you look at recently, there's such a bad uplift during the pandemic in universal credit and it's taken away. as we heard, the sort of cost of living crisis starts to form. It should be given back. The two-child limit, if you look at the child poverty statistics particularly, I can't remember the precise figures, and you probably know them better, but an awful lot of those children are in families where there are more than two children. And we need to get, if we can deal with child poverty, we have to get rid of the two-child benefit. It's really disappointing that Labour Party haven't committed to it.
Thank you.
That's going on.
So I think that I know that there is a direct correlation between food bank use and the time that the Tories have been in power. We would increase the minimum wage to £15 an hour. We would advocate for universal basic income. Each year, Cambridge City Council has 3 times the number of applicants than homes they have to let. So for that reason, we would also be aiming to build 150,000 social homes every year to make sure that everybody has a home to live in. We will also be rolling out an Insulate Your Home scheme where we will invest heavily to make sure that the homes that we do have that already exist, many of your homes, so that we can make them much more sustainable so that bills can come down as well.
Steve.
Bit upset. So on polling day for district elections in May, I volunteered at Amesbury Food Bank, where the queue for the food bank was bigger than the queue for the polling station, and that's just wrong. Yeah, so when Anthony says people need to work their way out of poverty, come to the food bank, Anthony. You see working people who can't afford to feed themselves, children who are scrabbling in bags of sweets, and it's disgusting. Yeah, it's good. As a district councillor, I'm in charge of the benefits in my portfolio. It's Lib Dem, Green, Labour and Independent District Council. What we've done is we've abolished council tax for the poorest 4,000 people in the district, saving £1 million. People are paying 85, under the Conservative District Council, paying £85, getting paid £85 a week in universal credit, having to pay £5 in council tax. I abolished that with my colleagues on the front page of the Hunts Post saying District Council abolishes council tax for the poor. What we need to do is build more social housing because people can't afford to pay rent and pay mortgages. The Lib Dem and Conservative coalition created austerity, cut the social housing budget by 60%, and we're paying the consequences of it now. So we need to build more social houses so people don't spend all their income on mortgages and rent. That's the first thing we have to do.
We were talking earlier, but I just think it's a massively convoluted issue. It's not just a case of one thing or another. There's multiple factors that, somebody could be in a 2-income full working class family, or it could be they're just about prison or they've got severe mental health issues. I don't think it is. I don't think there's anything that's just a quick fix. And again, I do have a lot of empathy with those people, but as 16 people in the past, I'm not sure. And so I think even that would sort of satisfy me. But I do have a lot of
Yeah, unrestricted migration hits the poorest in our societies far harder than anybody else. So the first thing we have to do is stop this uncontrolled flow of people who are coming in here and undercutting people who would otherwise be working already. So that's item 1. So then we have to encourage people into work. The way we do that is by making sure that work pays, lifting the personal allowance to 20,000 from 12.5 to make sure that every pound they earn stays in their pockets and they have more money of their own. People who are choosing not to work for whatever reason, who could, need to be somewhat forced to go to work. If they could work, they should be working. And so in Reform UK's policy, if you get offered 2 jobs and you turn them down, then you'll access to benefits.
Just having read the rest of the questions that are on here, I think we've generally covered the topics that have been asked in the questions. So I'm going to open up to the floor if anyone wants to put their hand up who has any questions.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think
You should say so.
most of the comments about St Neots have been very positive. It's just got some beautiful areas. It's a lovely place to live. There's one aspect that's failed miserably, and that's the high streets. I've been down here 30 years now from Sheffield. And over that period, all the really good shops have gone, they've not been replaced. What I'm putting this down to some extent, is the fact that a lot of people in St Neots think that they get the very, very rough end of the rates, taxes, returns to DC. An example of that, very recently, Huntingdon District Council, whose high street is massively superior to St Neots anyway, they said that they would give £10,000 to every shop that put their frontages much better. St Neots didn't get that at all. So the question really is, as we're going to be part of a different constituency from Huntingdon, why have we still got to remain and get the short end of the stick? Why can't we have a St Neots and Mid Cambridge Council? Why have we still got to be putting money into them? That's the general.
So I started, first started coming to St Neots to talk to people on the doorstep just about 2.5 years ago. And this was what I heard over and over again about the disparity with the focus on Huntingdon. And to be honest, in the broader sense of your question, we do need local government reorganisation in Cambridgeshire. We've got so many layers of government, and it's so dysfunctional.
But the question is, if you were to be elected, would you go for that? You know, 'cause
personally, I think we do need to see reorganisation of local government in Cambridgeshire. In terms of the rates specifically, though, I think that we do need to reform business rates for high streets. That's in the Lib Dem manifesto, kind of commercial landowner levy rather than it being in businesses.
Catherine?
So the Green Party kind of prides itself on being the party of local politics. We manage ourselves internally with the democracy and with etc. It kind of breaks down to small groups. So we would like to see more power given to local councils so that they can spend the money allocated to them in the way that they see fit, because ultimately the local people in the local councils know the area better, they know what needs to be happening, and so that's
Stephen?
So some myths. First of all, business rates are not set by district council, they're set by the government. In the 2019 manifesto, Anstey's government committed to reforming business rates and haven't done it. So that problem is a government issue, and we have no control of business rates. In terms of the shopfront grant, absolutely the shopfront grant scheme is applicable. It was originally allocated for a different project, being a co-retail hub, but we reallocated the money to shopfront grants and to also people who wanted to improve disability access of their shops. So we had that too. Is HTC biased against Neots? Half of the cabinet on HTC, including me, are from St Neots. St Neots has also had £15 million invested on Market Square, the Priory Centre and the Falcon, the biggest investment that any town in Hampshire has ever had. Yeah, we have some great shops as well. We've got Shoe, we've got Roberto's, we've got Chai Hub, we've got GameStop. There's some brilliant independent businesses. The nature of high street's changing. Yeah, the internet has changed that. Retail markets have changed that. Would I agree that we need to reform local government? Yes, because I've been a councillor at all three levels, and even I don't understand it. It's too complicated. I'll be in favour of one, maybe two unitary council, which should make it simpler for everyone to understand. But I think HTC does really have St Neots at its heart, because I'm on the cabinet HTC and I have St Neots at my heart.
Okay, so I've lived in St Neots for 20 years, and I've seen the decline as well as you have, and it is notable. But I don't know what I could do as a resident. Nobody's outside. So the more the shops drop down, the less I come into town. And so maybe we need a consultation locally with residents, find out what residents want. What do we put in those empty units? Do we want any more independent shops? And if so, how do we encourage them? Do we make the biggest units like Britain's? Do we make it smaller? And then does that then require investment? And do we need to then see additional funding? Because otherwise, I do think it will just be quite further, which would be sad.
Yeah, this is something I've spent a lot of time on, obviously, with my buyer hat on, but the face of retail obviously is changing. And I think the time has come to recognise the fact that not all towns and cities should be retail centres. At the moment, virtually all towns and cities are trying to do a bit of retail, and they're mostly doing it badly and failing. I think the time's come to have a central pot of money, which towns and cities can compete for. If they want to become retail centres, and I think St Neots is an ideally placed for this, have a central pot of money they can compete for, transform, come up with a strategy to promote retail activity in their town or city, which would include things like free parking funded by this central pot of money, free parking, which is a massive thing, smartening up the offering, bringing retail businesses from towns and cities that choose not to focus on retail, so that they can be drawn to towns and cities that want to become retail centres, and accept the fact that we need to have a smaller number of better retail centres in the country rather than a large number of poor ones. Obviously, taxation is a massive thing as well. We believe in slashing high street retail business rates and loading 4% on online sales taxes.
Thank you. Andrew Brown.
I think St Neots getting its own MP for the first time is a huge opportunity to have a powerful champion for St Neots, to make sure that St Neots gets a fair deal, as I said in my opening remarks, and you don't have a trademark, I'm afraid. And things like the view that Huntingdon favours itself as the seat of the council. It's got the hospital, the police, the job centre, and so on. This does some of the overflow work from the job centre. Absolutely challenge that, see what the reality is, and make sure that St Neots gets its just deserves. All the Section 106 money from all this house building, where does that all go? And that's one of the things I'd really like to, to champion, and make sure that St Neots gets everything. One of the issues that Stephen said is that, the district council has St Neots at its heart, etc. It's half there. Is actually on the high street. We have a high street that's really suffering. I said earlier we need an economic development strategy. Huntington's got a high street that's thriving, and actually Huntington District Council ought to be favouring St Neots High Street precisely because it's got a vacancy rate of a quarter of shops are empty. It really needs to get a new deal for St Neots, and that's what I would champion.
Yeah. We've had a Conservative MP for 27 years and never comes to this.
MP for St Neots.
He was our MP.
Thank you. Let's take a vote from the crowd. Thank you. Anybody else got a question?
A lot has been said so far this evening about education. You all do lots of education, particularly processing, but nothing's been said about primary schools, and that's where the children's life begins. We're teaching them everything from writing their name to now going to the toilet. That's what the job has become. But we are so underfunded. We're in a teaching crisis. There's not enough teachers. And it's not even just teachers. The funding at the LA is nothing. We now have got children who are waiting for an education health and care plan for over a year. So we've got children in mainstream education who can't meet their needs because there isn't the funding to support them. And I just want to know, from a primary level, from the start of this child's life, what are you going to do to make sure that in school, from that 4-year-old, we can give them everything they need?
Great, thank you for your question. So I spoke to the National Education Union last week, and they gave me some really harrowing facts about education in this country. 80% of head teachers work over 50 hours a week. Like I said, class sizes are over 30 students in each class. And funding has been sliced, and you've got crumbling schools falling down all over the place. We would invest £8 billion a year in education, and that would include a £2 billion payout for teachers to make sure that teachers stay in education. Because another stat was that within 2 years, lots of teachers leave the profession because it is just too difficult. Yeah, I've signed the School Cuts campaign, which means that I've pledged to say that I will not cut their funding to education. The Green Party believes in a child-centred approach to learning, so that we appreciate all the different children who want to learn different things, and we would also introduce free nurseries for early years children.
So in my inbox, if I'm honest, yeah, I get lots of emails and correspondence about secondary education, but not a lot about primary education. And we do have some excellent primary schools here, at least in terms of their buildings. We've got New Wintering Academy, we've got Roundhouse, there's a couple more primary schools coming on Wintering, and I think one Lost Farm too. But having the buildings isn't good enough if we don't have teachers. So part of the issue is not paying them. The other issue is not treating you well enough. We need to encourage people into teaching. Schools are like, we talk about manufacturing, schools are factories which turn young people into valuable members of society, and the teachers are the machines. If we can't have good teachers, we can't do that. So paying teachers more, absolutely, there's a crisis in that profession, but also treating you properly, giving you good working conditions, good working hours, not overworking you, and giving you some freedom in the curriculum too, I think is really important. So all about that, I would absolutely support you and all primary school teachers.
You said you've got 4-year-olds going on this toilet, so, which is something that I've heard as well over the years. And I think we've got a big societal issue rather than, because I don't think, if you've got children coming to school at 4 who aren't toileted, there's something going wrong before that, because there really should be, most of the average children should be toileted. I've heard there's also problems with children not being able to sort of feed themselves, use knife and fork. And I think a lot of that is because there is a tendency nowadays to chuck it in front of a tablet and leave it. And I remember talking to one head teacher, and she came from a very nice middle class area, and she was having to teach children to shut them out when they're eating, which I think is, and if that's the level that kids are going to school at, you're not qualified for that. That's not where your training starts, because your training starts at getting to read and write and sit down and behave. And so I do think there's something going fundamentally wrong in society. That's, you're seeing it, but I think it happens before it even gets to school. I think it's a global issue. It's not just a UK issue. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, to encourage teachers to enter the profession and stay, eliminating interest on student loans, writing them off after 10 years for teachers and NHS workers if they elect to stay here for 10 years rather than leave. I think that will help to boost the number of teachers. I think that's a large part of the answer. I do agree there's a societal issue as well, and that we need to address some kind, and I think again it comes down to pride and self-respect. For whatever reason, we're losing the common standards that we used to consider normal. And I don't know what that's down to. I don't think it's anything that can be legislated for. I think it's something that can only be brought about by societal peer pressure and not accepting inadequate behaviour, whether that's a social housing tenant who doesn't look after property, or somebody who allows their kids to just grow up on their own. It's not acceptable, and that needs to be underlined and made quite clear.
Like Stephen, I've had far fewer complaints about primary schools and secondary schools. And I visit schools all the time. I love visiting schools in my constituency, and I talk to the teachers about funding, and I know what the issues are. One of the big early campaigns I had was making sure that Cambridgeshire gets a fair deal on education funding, because it's £400 per pupil per year less in Cambridgeshire than it is the national average, and that's for long historical reasons. I lobbied for a minimum funding agreement, so that there's a minimum amount that each pupil is paid. I met Gavin Williamson when he was Education Secretary about it, and they have introduced that, and so that the funding for education in Cambridgeshire has increased faster than the rest of the country. I know it's still not enough, particularly on the SEND side, absolutely. Teaching, I think we absolutely should aim for the Finnish model where teaching is an aspirational career. It's something that people want to go into. It's prestigious. Part of that's about pay. We have increased the minimum salary of teachers to £30,000 a year. There's a particular problem with STEM teachers, because obviously they can generally earn more money doing other things. We have introduced a bonus of £30,000 over 5 years for STEM teachers, but it's I'm unfortunate. There you go. I'll carry on. Talk about
So to cover a few things, one is much better years provision, and that meant accessible for everyone. So the kids coming in are ready to learn, ready. I think that there are things also around. We talked about child quality before. Extending free school meals to more children with their welfare and ready to learn from that point of view. The SEND the same situation is just actually getting any is impossible unless, and some people manage to work their way through the system. But you're in a situation where it's actually cheaper for most county councils in Cambridgeshire, to actually sort of delay and be challenged on appeal and to actually fulfil their obligation. So we just aren't funding them well enough, and that means that we don't to make your life in classroom.
We've got time for one more question.
We do, and we also have some online questions as well.
Yeah.
I'm probably unique in this room in all sorts of ways, but the main reason I'm unique in this room is the purpose of my business is to put myself out of business. I work in road safety. We kill 1,700 people on the roads in this country every year. We seriously injure about another 28,000, and then we have a whole load of other people who get slightly injured, but it's still obviously sort of traumatic experience for them. A lot of those people who get killed, there's a huge impact on the economy of the country. There's a huge impact on local businesses because you train someone up, you work with them, and then they get killed. Or you train someone up, you work with them, and then they're injured. This is not going to be a speech, but the coalition government scrapped having a road safety strategy. They scrapped having road safety targets. Road safety targets were originally introduced by a Conservative minister, Peter Bottomley. They carried on through the Labour years. We had, over the 30 years I've worked in road safety, we've had declining figures of road deaths. Those have now plateaued. Within this constituency, the number of people, this constituency area, the new constituency, the number of people being slightly injured is going up, the number of people being seriously injured is going up, and the number of people who are being killed is going up. So I want to know, first of all, what PAN would do about it. I also sit on the management committee for the all-party parliamentary group for transport safety, for the group that helps run that. And I'd like to take commitment from all of the candidates that if they're elected, they will join the all-party parliamentary group on transport safety to stop people getting killed here, please.
So yeah, absolutely, I would join that. So I'm involved quite a lot in local road issues. I'm elected by the county council, been working in Little Paxton to look at the entry slip road onto the A1, which is really dangerous. The sad thing about that is we look at all the statistics, and injuries and serious injuries aren't enough. You almost have to have deaths before people take any action. That road is completely not fit for purpose, but national highways aren't interested. The county council can't afford to do anything about it. So that's a huge issue. So yes, we need to take road traffic deaths more seriously, not only in cars, but also on active transports and bikes. Mike Goff was a cycling campaign killed and punctured a few months ago, which was tragic. We've got the A421, which goes between here and Catch and Gibbet. You can't cycle between here and Camborne because you have to go on the road. We're spending £1 billion of public money on a big new road, and we're not putting any extra transport provision in, and that's wrong. So we need to make the road safer for everybody, and not just car drivers.
Last night I was coming back from my overdown 1309, and there was a cyclist with no lights on. And I thought, it was only because I called something. And so I think that's road's not sort of suitable. So I think the whole transport system does need to be looked at. But also I think road users also need educating as well. It's not just a one-way system. So if the death rates are going up, why are they going up? What's led to that? Is it just a slip road? If the deaths aren't happening there, what's leading to that increase in death? So I think that needs to be looked at as well, maybe.
Yeah, I think road conditions are a massive issue. Having roads that are fit for purpose for all users, whether they're cyclists, motorcyclists, car drivers, really important to get that properly fixed. The other thing is to enforce the laws we already have. We're seeing local councils around the patch here resort to 20-mile-an-hour speed limits because people don't obey the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Well, guess what? If they don't obey 30 miles an hour, they're not going to obey 20 miles an hour either. So it doesn't do anything to help road safety. All it does is create a feel-good factor, I guess, among those people who've done it. So we need to have more police out there enforcing the laws, whether it's cycles without lights, or dangerous driving, reckless driving, motorcyclists behaving like idiots up the 428. at the moment, you can get away with literally murder if you're driving, because the chance of getting caught are almost zero. So we need to change that and bring in some proper enforcement of our existing laws.
So I am Transport Minister, but not for roads, I'm the Minister for Aviation, and I can talk about plane safety an awful lot. I am, however, within my portfolio on vehicle standards, and which are an international agreement, and we are introducing new measures within cars to make them safe the whole time. It's incremental, it's small scale, it's international. We do have a very good track record of road safety, some of the safest roads in the world, but as you say, in recent years that's plateaued, and I'd certainly like to understand the reasons for that. We are, in terms of the quality of the roads, we're investing £8.5 billion on resurfacing roads and fixing potholes. One of the things I was doing on the general school was making sure we maximise the spending on that to make sure we get a sort of permanent solution to potholes and don't have roads that disintegrate every year. It can't be beyond the wit of man and women to have roads that last longer than we have at the moment. And just final point, as Minister for Transport Technology, I introduced past legislation for self-driving vehicles. That technology is coming. I've driven self-driving vehicles around this country, and that reduces road deaths, road accidents by about 80%.
Ian?
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on road safety. That's clearly your wheelhouse, and I'd like to talk to you more about that at some point. In terms of what we need, in the absence of a strategy, you've quoted the figure yourself. Things get worse. We actually need to look, it seems to me, at what is causing what's caused. Is it because of potholes and surfacing? Is it because no, I didn't think so. Or are there some more fundamental issues there? And that's where you start with your strategies. What is causing this? What's the problem? And then you look at what the solutions and how that can be facilitated. Very happy to join your parliamentary group as well.
So part of my job as a landscape designer is actually to design roads that encourage traffic calming. So this includes being able to see pedestrians and narrowing roads, but also integrating features such as SUDS designs, which essentially that's sustainable urban drainage designs, which are kind of plants, trees, etc., which also work to take the water off the roads. But we are also committed in the Green Party to try and get people out of cars and into public transport, and also into active travel modes, so that's walking, running, cycling. And I've personally committed to CamCycle, who's a campaign group, that we will invest £2.5 billion a year in active travel routes. And we would want to aim for their objective. So this is Active Travel England's objective of 50% of trips being walked, wheeled or cycled by 2030.
Thank you very much. So just very conscious of time, we have come to the end of the time we have our candidates for. So yeah, a round of applause for the candidates. Thank you. For the next couple of days, we can take the time to collate all of the online questions. We will circulate to them if you want to take the time to answer them. It's up to you. We know you've got very busy schedules for the next 2 weeks, so there's no pressure, but we will collate them, we will circulate them as I promised. As I say, Citizen Hub will be open for the next half an hour or so, so if you do want to know about, you might be able to catch them, please. Yeah.
Can we also ask you to just hold on for 2 minutes while we quickly count up the entry poll? We might have forgotten to count while we were engrossed in the questioning. Thank you. Official count up, Will. And if you wouldn't mind doing the same on your exit, just putting your counter in a pot so that we can see how the candidates perform on this way from there. Thank you very much for coming.